Mammoth, enormous day here at the Voice of College Football, and this kicks it off right here. Appreciate you stopping by for OU Sooners Live, as you can see in the bottom of the screen, edition number 123 right here at the Voice of College Football, our second of two OU live streams that we provide for you here each and every week. Join Jason Ray on Fridays. Jason anchors our Sooners Tailgate Live show. It's every Friday. It's at 3 Central Time. Again, Sooner Tailgate with Jason Ray on Friday. So we have been tracking down a number of great guests to deliver to all of you to provide Oklahoma football talk here at the Voice of College Football, as we have for, as you can see, over 2 years each and every week on our Sooners Live show. And again, the rest of the day is power-packed at the Voice of College Football. And so before we dive into the Oklahoma football content, would love to let you know that at 1:30 Eastern, so that's 12:30 Central, over on the main channel, we've got a big call-in show and a big live stream to continue this saga between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and others involved across the country, Florida State, Clemson, and others. But we will talk up college football realignment and expansion, of course. That's at 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central over on the main channel. Then we've got our typical block 5, 6, and 7 this afternoon. Michigan live at 5, Florida State live at 6. And then we've got Miami live at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Then tonight, more realignment, this time from the Big Ten angle. We know what the rumors are concerning Oregon and Washington. We know that the Big Ten wants Notre Dame desperately. We know that Clemson and Florida State possibly could be joining the Big Ten. We know that Miami is an option as well. And there are other commodities in the ACC as well that could be joining the Big Ten at some point. So again, deep dive on the Big Ten coming up tonight at 8:30 Eastern over on the main channel, followed by the Pac-12 chat show. Pac-12 live chat show, 10:30 Eastern. So it's a power-packed day here at the Voice of College Football. Let's get to some Oklahoma talk. Of course, we'll take your comments and questions there in the live chat again over the next few weeks. We hope to deliver tons of excellent guests here on our Sooners live show. You're stuck with me today, though. We'll answer your comments and questions there. And I really wanted to go through, and here's another programming plug. We had Phil Steele on last week over on the main channel. Check out that live stream with Phil Steele. That was a great time. Remarkable guest. Of course, Phil Steele produces the gold standard of college football preview magazines. And so we get Phil on to discuss his work and the upcoming season each and every summer. And we may have Phil come on for a second appearance here soon. But again, check out the live stream from last week over on the main channel. And I really wanted to carve through this concerning Phil Steele's metrics and compilations concerning Oklahoma football. Again, your comments and questions, we will get to them right here at the Voice of College Football. All right, let's dive in. I don't know when the last time this has happened, but there is no Oklahoma players on the All-America first team, second team, third team, or fourth team. Phil Steele takes it out to a fourth team. So you've got 11 starters on offense, 11 on defense. You got 6 special teams players as well, punter, kicker, returners, and all-purpose players. And yes, 4 All-America teams, and I see nobody from Oklahoma. Now, again, this is analysis. This is not rocket science. It's not exact science. So are there Oklahoma players who are capable of breaking onto an All-America team at season's end? Those are the ones that count, the ones at season end. And they're even sketchy at times based on people's perceptions and their evaluation of the play on the field. But the preseason ones, they mean something. They mean something because obviously these are projections based on what we've seen in the past. And Oklahoma's 6-7 campaign last year does not bode well in terms of All-America teams. But you guys want wins, not necessarily personal accolades. So if somebody is going to join and break through to be an All-America this year, who would that be? So we've got about 20 folks on the line. Leave your most likely Oklahoma All-American in the chat. They lost 3 offensive linemen. We'll talk about that. 2 went to the NFL draft and were high draft choices. But they did bring in 3 transfers. Of course, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, but the quarterback position in college football is so loaded, you would not expect him to be an All-American and break through with that kind of season. Danny Stutzman, failed BV. Thank you so much for that, Danny Stutzman. That would be certainly an option, and certainly he is an all-conference player after leading the team in tackles last year. So that's it on the All-American list right now concerning the Sooners. And again, leave your All-America candidates for Oklahoma football there in the chat. Phil Steele has Oklahoma listed as his number 8 surprise team. I don't exactly know what that means, because I do believe that most of us have Oklahoma in that 9 or 10 win category. So based on what happened last season at 6-6 and 7th loss in the bowl game, that would be a significant improvement. But based on the schedule and what we know of the talent and the talent upgrade and the transfer portal additions, I believe we all think that Oklahoma is going to be significantly better. One of the measurements that I have used, if you've heard me on here and then over on the main channel in particular, is the 3-win measurement. How many teams improve or decline by at least 3 wins every year from season to season? Who are those teams? There were 27 of them last year. Can you believe that? 27 in the Power 5. Not even including the group of 5. And Oklahoma at 6-6 last year in the regular season, I believe, is a prime candidate to improve by at least 3 games this season. And one of the reasons why I started to track that metric every year, and I've done it for about 5 or 6 years, because it struck me in reviewing all the preseason publications coming out from Street and Smith's, Athlon's, Lindy's, and others, that even though they do a remarkable job of producing college football preview magazines, their predictions are way too conservative. They basically take what happened last year, they slightly tweak it, maybe to not embarrass themselves. Maybe they don't want to go out on a limb. If you're Street and Smith's or Lindy's or Athlon's, you don't want to go out on a limb and look bad. So why not put Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and Alabama in the playoff practically every year? Maybe throw one of them out and swap them in with somebody else, and then go along with basically what happened last year, because you're going to be close to being right. Instead of trying to be a visionary and determine who's going to pop and who's going to drop significantly for the next season. 27 teams last year from their 2021 record to 2022 either elevated significantly or dropped. Oklahoma, of course, a prime candidate. Shoot, if we look at our helmets back here, Florida State, 5-7 in 2021 to 9-3. Prime candidate, 4-win difference. Tennessee, 7-5 to 10-2. There you go. Oregon State, I don't believe, quite made that standard. 7-5 to 9-3. There are definitely some other ones. Texas A&M going the other direction, 8-4 to 5-7. Now they're a prime candidate to reverse it again, bounce back. Washington up top, 4-8 to 10-2. So who are those teams that are going to elevate or decline that much this coming season? Jeffrey says to win in the SEC will take defense at a level we, Oklahoma, have not played in 2 decades. True. And I believe Coach Venables will get the Sooner defense playing where it should be to compete at a championship level. And I think we all saw the news concerning Brent Venables' wife this week. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to their family situation and her health situation, certainly. Phil Steele believes that Oklahoma is the 21st best team in the country. Number 21. That is not the final ranking that he's predicting, but take the schedule and push it aside. Just talking about who are the best teams. He is Oklahoma at 21. And just to compare, he's got Texas at 8. Let's see, who else in the Big 12? Texas, 8. Oklahoma, the second best team in the Big 12 at 21. TCU, 23. Kansas State, 31. Texas Tech, 32. And then we'll probably see a ton of teams. And this is the way the Big 12 is going to go. And all of you don't care because you're going to be off to the SEC in 2024. But the Big 12 is going to have a lot of 30th and 40th best teams in the country. That is going to be the conference going forward. Not that there aren't going to be teams that are going to pop like TCU did last year, like Oklahoma State is certainly capable of doing and be top 10 teams for a season. But that conference is going to live. That conference is going to live in the 30 to 40 to 50 range. Slapnuts RC believes that 21st is being kind for OU. And again, appreciate y'all being here. Sooners Live. We've got what we hope is going to be a slew of tremendous guests coming up in future weeks for our Sooners show. And be sure to be following all of our notifications and so forth because the show may be moving days and times depending on availability of guests. Now, Phil Steele is combining how good he thinks the team is, which again, 21st in the country, power ranking against the schedule, which we've talked about here on recent weeks, looks to be pretty favorable. No Kansas State, no Texas Tech. Correct? No Kansas State for sure. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Let's see. I believe no Texas Tech either. It's a pretty favorable schedule for OU. And so when Phil Steele combines the power ranking of number 21 with the schedule, he says number 20 is going to be the final ranking. So yes, no Texas Tech, no Kansas State. Good news for the Sooners there. A lot of people like Texas Tech to elevate and be a dark horse breakthrough kind of team. All right, now let's get to the individual units themselves. I lost track here. Where was I? Okay, here we go. Your thoughts on this, Sooner Nation? Again, no All-Americans on 4 All-America teams, first, second, third, and fourth teams. Quarterback unit, not just Dylan Gabriel, but of course he's the main component. Oklahoma with the 21st best quarterback room in the country. OU number 21 at the quarterback position in college football. Texas number 14. Texas Tech 20. Tyler Shook just one spot ahead of Oklahoma. Texas 14, Texas Tech 20, Oklahoma 21. And then elsewhere in the Big 12, for it being a quarterback league, typically, historically, recent history, apparently not this season. Nobody in the top 13 in quarterback play, according to Phil Steele, and only 2 in the top 20, Oklahoma at 21. Nobody else in the top 32. The next Big 12 team is TCU, with Chandler Morris coming back, number 38. Kansas 44, Jalen Daniels. So I would need some more explanation on that, because Jalen Daniels is better than the 44th best quarterback in the country. And of course, it's the entire quarterback room, not just the starter, but the starter has to be the one that makes up most of the ranking. At running back, I don't get this one. At running back, Oklahoma number 30. Javante Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, Marcus Major, much better than that. I know there are tons of teams that are loaded at running back, but Oklahoma much better than number 30. Elsewhere in the Big 12 at running back, Baylor 21. Texas 24, of course, lost Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, but they've got the 5-star coming in. And UCF at 32. At running back, wide receiver. Of course, wide receiver is probably hurting more than any other position for Oklahoma in a sense, compared to the standard. Not that it's a bad wide receiver core. It's a decent wide receiver core. Jalil Farouk, Drake Stoops, and company. And according to Phil Steele's preseason magazine, Oklahoma's wide receivers are number 28 in the country. Of course, we know Texas is loaded there. Number 5, Texas Tech at number 8. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Oklahoma number 3 in the Big 12 at number 28 nationally. TCU 31, UCF 33 at wide receiver. So Oklahoma needs to recruit wide receivers. Certainly needs to find something this year out of the guys that we've discussed in recent weeks. Offensive line, always a strength under Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley. Okay, the offensive line is expected to be really good by a number of services. Phil Steele has OU at number 7. Number 7. Offensive line coach Bill Biedenbaugh, usually as a group contending for the Joe Moore Award. Of course, they've won one. This year, they lose 2.5 starters. They had a number 1 draft choice, of course. They had a number 3 draft choice, but add in the Stanford, Miami of Ohio, and Appalachian State transfers. The returning starts to this offensive line is 147. You're not going to see that number. Now, most of those did not come at Oklahoma. Most of those came at Stanford, Appalachian State. And so, therefore, it's not returning starts to Oklahoma necessarily playing in the Big 12, but still, that's a lot of production coming back, a lot of starts, a lot of experience. We'll see if it relates. All right, defensive line. Oklahoma has fortified the defensive line. That was the obvious biggest priority during the transfer portal. And Oklahoma, according to Phil Steele, will have the 17th best defensive line in the country right now. And again, most of the, Davin Sears, Rondell Bothroyd, and company coming in to fortify the defensive line. Linebackers. Oklahoma's ranking at linebacker. I can't find them. Where are they? 38. Seems a bit low, but somewhat fair. Defensive backs for OU with Texas at number 11, by far the best team in the Big 12 on paper. On paper, we've said that before. On paper, and Oklahoma at number 20 in the secondary. That's not too shabby. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into these position units in just a second. Special teams, Oklahoma, nowhere to be found. Now, again, if we dig into the metrics a little bit more, I did look at Pro Football Focus, and it was just way too much information to try to grind down for the show today, but we will look at that later in looking at PFF. Until I learned to really use those categories in Pro Football Focus, a number of those items are difficult to decipher. So, for example, I go to the quarterbacks and you've got to select a draft year. Well, we know that the draft year isn't exact because those players have not declared yet. Dylan Gabriel was ranked, according to PFF, 37th in the country last year. But a ton of those guys in front of him have left. But there are going to be new quarterbacks who may surpass him. Kyle McCord, Ohio State, Drew Aller, Penn State, and others, possibly. I wanted to look into this offensive line. So coming back from last season, after entering 2022 with 125 career starts coming back, the Sooners had to do some early shuffling on the offensive line, but overall did an excellent job at opening running lanes, 220 yards per game, 4.9 average per carry, but they did allow 31 sacks. This season, OU loses first team All Big 12 left tackle Anton Harrison, of course. He was a first-round draft pick. Second team All Big 12 right guard Chris Murray and right tackle Wanye Morris, who was also drafted in the third round by the Chiefs. And Robert Congle, of course, he was the incoming transfer from Cal, correct? Robert Congle. Anyway, they add Walter Rouse, 39 career starts at Stanford. Caleb Schaefer, 6'5", 337, big boy out of Miami of Ohio with 36 career starts. And Troy Everett, 6 starts coming in from App State. 147 career starts. I've rarely come across that number. So tons of experience coming back. And of course, Bill Biedenbaugh is one of the best. So the offensive line, with that running attack, with those backs, feel good about that. Feel good about everything offensively except wide receiver, But feel good about Dylan Gabriel's good. He's good. It's not great. He's not what you've enjoyed over the last decade, but he's good. And this running game should be devastating. If they can keep teams out of the box, they can threaten them downfield to a certain extent. Okay. Speaking of the running backs, of course, Oklahoma loses second team All Big 12 performer Eric Gray, had 1,300 yards, 6.4 yards per carry. He was drafted by the Giants. Javante Barnes, stud. Marcus Major had 227 yards last year, despite his issues. Gavin Sawchuk, of course, showed us what he can do. And the bowl game against Florida State, that was the precursor to this season. That showed all of us what it might be like this season. Both young backs go for 100 yards against a pretty stout Florida State defense. Then, of course, you add freshman Dalen Smothers. I don't know how much he's going to be counted upon, but still, wow. Yes, deep, talented unit. I've got all the respect in the world for Phil Steele, and maybe I'm missing something here because I see a disconnect between his running back ranking nationally and what Oklahoma definitely has in the running back room. Let's see if there's anything of worth under the quarterback position. Dillon Gabriel started 11 games. The offense generated 510 yards per game and 37 points. But in the 2 games he did not, Oklahoma put up just 275 yards and 12 points per game. Well, that speaks to Dillon Gabriel, but that more than anything speaks to Davis Bevel and the backup quarterback situation last year, which was dismal. It should never get to that point. But Jackson Arnold is, of course, the future and will be the backup this year. Okay, receivers. Andrell Anthony. If you watch Andrell Anthony's game tape against Michigan State in 2021, you'll think that he could possibly be the guy. But that's his game. That's his career. So I don't know what to tell you. Michigan State had a lousy pass defense that year in 2021, one of the worst in college football. Statistically, they weren't actually one of the worst, the very worst, but statistically, Michigan State was awful. One of the bottom 5 to 10 pass defenses in the country, and Andrell Anthony certainly tore them up. But other than that, it was just odd because one of Michigan's biggest games in 2021, taking on a top 10 team, Andrell Anthony just went off, then disappeared, and basically last season, nothing. So we'll see if new surroundings, new coaching, new environment, and a fresh start will ignite Andrell Anthony. Brendan Thompson, of course, coming in from Texas. He only caught 1 pass, right? Okay. But a gifted recruit. Austin Stogner coming back, of course, from South Carolina. We talked to Parker Thune. If you have not checked out those segments with Parker Thune, please do. We've got the complete offensive and defensive breakdowns over on the main channel. And I don't know, we may have forgotten to post those here. So I'm going to have to get on that. I will post the position previews here with Parker Thune. And yes, I will have to double check the channel. Way too much going on here at the Voice of College Football with all the various channels. So we will get you those position previews here, but you can check out the entire offense and defensive breakdowns over on the main channel with Parker Thune. It's worth your time. Definitely. Defensive line. Oklahoma returns defensive ends Ethan Downs, 13 starts, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Reggie Grimes, 10 starts, 18 tackles, 4.5 sacks. They add Trace Ford from Oklahoma State, Davin Sears from Texas State, Jacob Lacey from Notre Dame, and of course, as we mentioned, Rondell Bothroyd from Wake. 14 sacks in 2 seasons. Dejon Terry, Tennessee, and Philip, how do you pronounce that? Philipea, Utah State. It's a completely different unit. It's a completely transfer-laden 2 deep along the defensive front. All right, linebacker, whether you want to call him a rush end, an edge, an outside linebacker, Dason McCullough, just the pickup of the offseason, I believe. Then you've got the AA transfer Connor Neer from Ferris State, despite losing 2 starters. Brent Venables says that this is the heart and soul of the defense. We talked about that last week with Danny Stutzman and company there at linebacker. Jaron Kanik, of course, is a freak athlete and a versatile player. We'll see how he figures in. Defensive backs. Phil Steele says one of the 20 best units in the country at DB. That wasn't the case last season. But after losing Justin Broyles, who started 12 games and was fourth on the team in tackles, and cornerbacks C.J. Colden, who had 4 starts, and Jaden Davis, 9 starts, OU loses 5 of their top 7 cornerbacks in terms of productivity. However, were they really good players? They lack experience there, but their safeties will be improved, and overall their secondary should be solid as long as their top cornerbacks remain healthy. So, thin at cornerback, but the quality is at the top of the depth chart. And again, the safeties. And everybody wants to see what Peyton Bowen can do. I mentioned Jaron Kanik. He's intriguing because of his skill set, but also, of course, Peyton Bowen. And your starting safeties, of course, Billy Bowman, and Reggie Pearson coming in from Texas Tech. And if you've not seen Reggie Pearson play and maybe only saw those games against Oklahoma, he is not shy. He will take on anybody. And now on to special teams. We talked about this with our guy, Parker Thune. Of course, they lose one of the very best punters in the country, Michael Turk. And, of course, Zach Schmidt had a curious season in which he only hit 12 of 18, but he was better between 40 and 49 yards. So, consistency out of a young kicker who has shown the ability to hit from 40 to 49. 7 out of 9 is what you would want from that distance. But 12 of 18, so he only went 5 of 9. Now, I don't know if they tried him from 50 plus much. All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Just thought I would go through the Phil Steele take on Oklahoma and see what you think. And again, 0 All-Americans on a 4-deep All-America list. I am going to guess that Oklahoma is going to have at least one first, second, or third team All-America at the end of the year. I don't think they go to 4th All-America teams. Better offensive line, certainly a better defensive line. 2 stud running backs who were just breaking in, especially Sawchuk, of course, late in the season. Dylan Gabriel, hopefully for the entire season, not missing the majority of the TCU, not missing the Texas game. That's what you lean on in terms of improvement and a softer schedule. That's what it is. All right, folks. Again, here on Sooners Live, we've done this for 123 consecutive weeks. Hang with us. We are in pursuit of tremendous guests to either have a regular contributor around here to analyze Oklahoma football with us each week or bring in a rotation of contributors. Again, get on over to the main channel, even though we will do our best to clip off and deliver, post the position previews here. They're over on the main channel. Oklahoma offensive breakdown, Oklahoma defensive breakdown with Parker Thune. They are worth the watch or the listen. You don't have to watch us. You don't have to look at me, although we do throw stats on the screen. So there is that. All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. I would expect so much more out of a Brent Venables defense. That's my one biggest takeaway out of a zillion takeaways from 2022 is I still can't fathom that one of the best defensive minds in the country, despite what he was given from a personal standpoint, cannot improve a defense. So that was a bit troubling for me. However, I do think the guy most likely will succeed at Oklahoma. What does that mean? Well, at Oklahoma, that means playing in the college football playoff. In the new era of college football forthcoming in 2024, to me, that means if you are Oklahoma, you are playing in the college football playoff most of the time. In the past, it's meant got to win the conference, BCS bowls before 2014. Try to get to the BCS championship game, of course, but there's only 2 teams in the BCS championship game. So the standard of success, win the Big 12, play in the BCS championship game, and if not, play in a BCS bowl as the Big 12 champion. That was the Bob Stoops standard, and he met it most of the time, overwhelmingly most of the time. Then Lincoln Riley, of course, in the playoff era, get to the playoffs. And Oklahoma generally did that. 2015, 17, 18, 19. And now, though, we're in a playoff era where the conference championship game and the title, unless you're into trophies, is minimized. And so unless you're into trophies and want to brag about being the SEC champion, just get to the playoff. Of course, you get a bye if you win the SEC. But first and foremost, up ahead, just over 3 weeks away, it's the 2023 season for Oklahoma, and we will have our final prediction upcoming very soon, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. Again, this day is stacked at the Voice of College Football. 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 for most of you Central Time. Over on the main channel, we're breaking down the Big 12. We're breaking down the Pac-12, media rights, all of the chaos and saga going on currently. 5 o'clock, Michigan. 6 Eastern, Florida State. 7 Eastern, Miami. 8:30 tonight, realignment expansion from the Big Ten angle over on the main channel. And then the Pac-12 chat show at 10:30 Eastern, right here at the Voice of College Football. See you in about 15 minutes.